All right. Good morning. Good evening. Good everything. Good. Whatever. Wherever you are today in the world, coming in from. Let me know where you're coming in from and where you're joining in from this live stream in the world. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic that a lot of us struggle with. Ask yourself: do you struggle with focus? Do you struggle with discipline? Do you struggle with feeling productive? Well, that's something that we're going to conquer today. We're actually going to talk about something called flow state. Many of you may already have heard of flow state, but you may not have. And flow, getting into flow, it's a science-based, very, very well-researched concept that helps to make hard things that we think are very, very hard, easy, right? Easier. So how to get into flow state, how to do that? Well, we have to investigate a few things. So what we're going to do I have slides. By the way, for those of you who are on TikTok, if you want to join the YouTube live stream, you can see all my slides, but if not, no worries, because we're going to go through it. But here, what is my qualification to talk about this? I have been in the academic world for years, right? Both in the academic world and in the entrepreneurship world. I've run multiple successful businesses. One of them was actually an academic agency helping students achieve top scores to get into top schools, Ivy League schools, really prestigious institutions. I myself am a graduate of an Ivy League school. So I'm very well focused, or I'm very well understanding of really what it takes to have that high performance and that high focus and the high discipline. But what are the common challenges? Well, we have a lot of common challenges, but it all boils down to this, I believe. I really believe we have to rethink, okay, well, what really does it mean for something to be difficult or hard? Well, think about it. I want you to think about this. What is the number of calories that it takes to read? Well, you might not know the answer to that. It's okay if you don't know the answer to that. You could look it up right now and you guys could surprise me. But it's not a lot of calories that it takes to read, right? What is the number of calories that it takes to eat healthy? Right? Man, it's so hard to eat healthy. It's so hard to just read a book, and I struggle to read a book because it's so hard. The number of calories it takes to learn a new skill. What's the number of calories it takes to learn how to code, right? Or to learn a new language? Very little. Very little. Even though our brain, it feels like we're working very, very hard. We're expending a lot of energy. Actually, we're not expending that much energy. Yes, our brain does consume a lot of energy. That's very true. But we're not really consuming this massive amount of energy. Our perception is totally off. So then what is hard? What does difficult mean, right? What does it mean for something to be hard versus easy? Well, it's mostly psychological. So you see, energy expenditure really isn't the issue when it comes to something being hard. That is our perception. I know a lot of us perceive, right, that something is hard and it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of our work. I'm actually going to talk a little bit also, of course, I have all this background in business, entrepreneurship, and the academic world to talk about this, but it's not just from that perspective that I'll be talking about this discipline and focus and flow state today. I'll also be discussing a little bit of my personal, in the past 6 months or so, my personal fitness journey and my experience with that as well, and how I've changed in my thinking. But energy expenditure is not the issue. Really, what's at issue is one, and I'll talk about this extensively here. One is our skill level. All right. What is our skill level? It also has to do with the challenge or the enjoyment level. Okay. And this is almost obvious, right? Okay. I don't like eating healthy. I don't like getting lots of work done. I don't like studying for long periods of time. I don't like learning this new skill. I wish I already knew copywriting and sales copy and whatever it is you're working on. I wish I already knew that. It's not It's obviously, if you could enjoy it, if we could enjoy it, then we would do it more, right? Think about the things you enjoy. Think about the last time you've done something, right? Okay, think about, let's say, a fun weekend that you had, and you went somewhere. Maybe you went hiking, or maybe you went to a theme park, maybe you went to the beach and you swam in the water a lot. I mean, that takes a lot of energy. It actually takes more energy than you think. So it's very interesting. As long as it's fun, for us, the energy expenditure, the feeling that it takes a lot of work is not there. All right. So let me see. Okay. Never mind. I'm just looking at the comments here. Okay. So here, what else is at issue? It's our consciousness of time. And I want to get into that shortly. What is our consciousness of time, and how does that affect how focused we are, how disciplined we are, how productive we are? Well, let's take a look at something, and this is flow state. Well, what is flow state? Let's talk about flow state for a moment. Flow state is when you have this intense feeling of concentration and focus, and you totally lose track of time, and you're just on a roll where activity after activity, just it feels enjoyable. You're working on this huge task and it just feels enjoyable, right? Think about the last time, you might have written something. Maybe you're a writer. Think about the last time you might have read a good book. Maybe it's not a good book. Maybe even, it's very interesting, maybe you went on, this is a little bit debatable, but it is relatable to the situation. Maybe you watched a movie marathon, and that is arguably, although it's arguably a flow state, a kind of a flow state. You just are so focused, you lose track of time. Maybe even you're hanging out with friends and you're just so focused on that enjoyment, you totally lose track of time. Suddenly 5 hours passes by. So this can be what creates that kind of a flow state. And we all want to be in it, right? Because that would make life a lot easier if we could be in a flow state more often. Well, it's all about what's called high arousal and high efficacy. So I'll break this down. So if our challenge level, if the challenge is high, okay, but our belief that we can meet that challenge is low, our skill level is low, right? Then it will cause anxiety. You see anxiety here up in this graph, right? If the challenge is high but our skill level is low, it will cause anxiety. And that's where a lot of anxiety comes from. It's one source of anxiety. If our skill level is high but the challenge is low, it will cause boredom, right? Think about the last time you were bored, right? It's probably because the challenge, something wasn't very challenging, but your skill level exceeded the challenge. It's really when we hit that sweet spot where the skill level and the challenge meet each other, are at the same level. That's when we get into flow state. So how can we do that more often? And we'll talk about this, right? You see high challenge. This is another representation of this, right? Where you have a high challenge and high skill gives us flow. Right? Low challenge and low skill gives us apathy, worry, boredom. We want to focus on how to do this. So the flow hack one is we want to make sure, hack number one is ensure your skill level and the ability level roughly match. So let's say you're trying to master a new skill. If the reason you might find reading unenjoyable or study unenjoyable, think about it, is that maybe what you're doing at the current level is way too high for your current skill level. You might want to kick it down a notch, the challenge level, maybe work with some easier material that's going to encourage you. You're going to want to do more, right? If you do that. So that's very important. Make that little adjustment, and most likely you're going to be in a flow state. Right? You're going to experience that emotion. You're going to experience that state, right? That's one little adjustment you got to make. Conversely, maybe you are, maybe your skill level is really high and the challenge isn't enough. And that's why you're feeling bored. right? You're not feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling bored. Well, make sure maybe do some harder material. For instance, an obvious one is if you're in the gym and now you find the gym boring, right? Many people eventually, what happens is they don't enjoy the gym, then they really love the gym. Then maybe you hit a plateau and you get kind of bored. Challenge yourself with higher weights. Maybe it's a research paper. Maybe it's a coding project. Maybe it's a sales copy that you're developing, right? Work on a harder task, a higher goal, increase your goal, right? That will ensure that you're going to get into flow state. So flow state number 2 is stop measuring time. Now, I do have an interesting story about this, to stop measuring time. What do I mean by stop measuring time? Okay, I don't know who can relate to this, but if you've ever done any exercise, the first time you've ever done any exercise, and I can relate to this in the past 6 months, the first time you've ever done any exercise, what do? At least this was my experience. I look at my watch all the time. As a countdown, okay, how many minutes left? How many minutes left? Right? I get on the treadmill or I do the stair climb or whatever it is. And I say, okay, well, how many minutes left? I'm always looking at the clock, always looking at the clock. And looking at the clock, actually looking at the clock makes it so that it is actually really like painful. It's a painful activity. What I started to train myself to do to enjoy the activity of exercise just a little bit more is to actually meditate while I'm exercising. Put myself in a meditative state. So I look at something on the wall. In this case, for me, it's usually a line on the wall, and I'll look at it and I'll just focus on that line. And I'll try to prevent any other thoughts from coming into my head. But the point is, it keeps me from looking at the clock. It keeps me from looking at the countdown. If I'm looking at the countdown, that's causing anxiety. It's causing, just a feeling like when is it going to be over? So the more conscious, that's the thing about flow state. When we get into flow state, the point of flow state is we lose track of time. Think about when you did something fun. People say time flies when you're having fun. Well, there's a reason, because you're not keeping track of time. So for instance, if you want to be more consistent with the gym, take your watch off, let's say with exercise or whatever, maybe it's a study activity, it's a time block. Maybe you have 2 hours to get something done. Don't look at the time. Put your phone away, put the clock away, maybe even make it so that you can't look at the clock on your computer. Well, how will I know when I'm done? Right? Well, set an alarm. But don't look at the clock. Get involved in the process. Get involved in the process. Part of flow is learning to enjoy the process. And then that goes along with this is time block and silence distraction. So you want to create those blocks of time because flow really only happens in blocks of time. You can't say, well, it's really hard to say I'm going to get into flow state in 15 minutes. And it might be hard. It might be easier said than done for many of us to, okay, I'm going to block out 2 hours of time. Yeah, right. Okay, like I have kids, I have a job, I have all this stuff going on. Can you strategically block out a half hour, maybe an hour, right? Cal Newport talks about this in Deep Work, right? This book, Deep Work. I really highly suggest people read this book. It's very, very good. But some of his advice I find a little bit impractical. You have to, he says, put in, these huge time blocks into your calendar. That's not doable for everybody. So find, at least if you have 30 minutes, if you can make 30 minutes, if you can find an hour to silence all the distractions. And the key to this is, maybe you're listening to me and you're saying, well, Steve, that's impractical. Silence all the distractions. It's easier said than done, right? Yeah, if you have a perfect life, you can silence all the distractions. Not so, right? What do I mean by silence distractions? Well, you might need to get out of your current environment. Investigate. Like for me, I'm very good working at home. Like I'm at home right now and I can get a lot done and I can control my environment. That's not the case for everybody. People have kids at home and all this stuff and going on. Maybe if the home is too distracting, tell your family, okay, I'm going to go to a coffee shop for the next 2 hours, please, with my headphones on. To get XYZ thing done, I'll be back, right? So you might want to look into changing your environment as well in order to time block and silence these distractions, right? Flow hack number 4, it's actually sleep, okay? And I don't know if any of you here follow Rian Doris. He's one of my favorite YouTubers, one of my favorite people. I love Rian Doris. He speaks extensively about flow, but he also extensively talks about sleep. We cannot, it's very hard to get into flow because without sleep, and let's demonstrate why. Oops, I don't have my slide, but it's fine. I will explain. When we sleep, we actually detox the brain. And this isn't some weirdo made up concept. You can look this up. More and more research, in recent years has shown that the brain actually detoxifies basically garbage, toxins in the brain when we sleep. It makes focus, energy, it makes productivity, it makes even our time blocks more difficult when we don't get enough sleep. And hormonal factors, right, when we don't get enough sleep. So I can't overstate this. It's very true. Now, exercise is important for, everybody says, oh, exercise is so important. Let me explain why for flow state, getting into flow states. Well, look at this. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but basically here, what is this showing? It's showing, I'll just summarize it. It's showing that we grow new brain cells. We actually grow new brain cells when we exercise long-term. You are growing new brain cells. So it's hard to get into flow, especially, let's say if you have ADHD, you have ADD, you are suffering with depression, anxiety, and these are getting in the way of flow. Let's be real, like depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, other behavioral issues that you might experience, that gets in the way. It's way easier said, oh, just, do these things and get into flow state than done, because maybe you have trouble. Maybe we have trouble doing them. I don't personally suffer from any of these things. However, I have suffered from depression in the past. So I kind of understand that perspective, but also I have worked with, lots of students and things like that who have had ADHD, and we've had to work through a lot of these issues. Exercise. What does exercise mean? Exercise is underrated. It can be even, you think I'm talking about going to the gym. Going to the gym is great, okay? But don't underestimate the power of walking. Okay, that's good news. Guess what? Walking burns a lot of calories. Walking is amazing for the cardiovascular system. Hey, Nikhil, good evening. Well, good morning for me. Good evening for you. Welcome. And it really helps us get into those flow states. Once again, exercise literally grows new brain cells. It grows new brain cells. You can grow new brain cells. Exercise is that magic. If there were any like magic cure for a lot of things, exercise would be one of them. Start with 15 minutes of walking. For sure. So I want to end this with just telling you guys a little bit about my Life Navigator system. We recently launched this. We've been having a lot of success with people working directly, right? Working directly with me, working directly with a very motivated community of people working on their goals. And basically how it works is we help you build out a customized personal development plan. We help you identify, what is your goal? You want to build a business? Do you want to level up in your career? Are you somebody who wants to switch careers or build a nonprofit? What are your goals? We help you craft that together and build the personal development plan to achieve that. Number 2, phase 2, is we bring you into skill mastery with a customized curriculum and study plan to achieve the skills that you might need or might be lacking and to be able to bring you into a place where you can achieve your goals, right? And number 3 is project completion. We help you connect with strategic connections, people, and resources. Because guess what, guys? A goal is what good is a goal? What good is even an action plan if you don't have the connections and resources? We actually help you do that. So you can click the link in the description to learn more, or if you're on TikTok, you can go to my link in bio to check that out. It's called the Life Navigator System. But here, I'm going to post the link to that in the chat here as well on YouTube, on the YouTube live stream. If you're not sure if you are ready for this, that's okay too. I am actually going to also post the link here for the Calendly. You can book a one-on-one call with me, no obligation, no pressure. Really, we'll just set up a preliminary plan for you, help you set up your own personal development plan, a quick one, but help give you some direction on where to go to achieve whatever that is, your business goals, the new business you want to start, the career you want to level up in, whatever that is. And if you love the plan and love how I work with you, then we can get started. And then if not, then you could just take that plan and use it and work it yourself, right? So you still have a solid plan to run on. So again, for those on TikTok, the link is in my bio. For those on YouTube, I just posted in the chat, and it's also available to check out in the description. So guys, I really enjoy my time with you. Always, I appreciate you being here with me. I always love taking your questions. Feel free to interact and ask me questions about your situation, what you're going through, how what your goals are, and I'll help you here live. And by helping you here live, it actually will help other people who might be too afraid to speak up, and help them through help you through your goals as well, or help them through their goals as well. So thanks guys for joining me today. I love hanging out with you. Take care. Have a great rest of your week.